What is up, my dudes? My name is Rane and welcome to Making Metal in FlStudio. In this series we're going to cover your setup, plugins and the gear you need. We're going to talk about arrangement, riffs and just in general how to write a song. How to get a good guitar tone, mix drums and vocals, and at the end of this you should be able to complete your first few songs that can go anywhere between power metal to even something like deathcore. This is part 1 and today we're going to be focusing on the setup. So let's start. First, let's talk about all the things that you'll need. Obviously, you will need a guitar. Duh, it's metal. Nice to have would be a bass. Although if you don't have one, don't worry, I will be talking about alternatives in a later video. Now, I imagine you don't want to play clean guitar throughout the entire album or song. So if you want a nice tone, you might want one of these, an amp, or alternatively you can plug your guitar into an audio interface and use an amp simulator, but we'll get to that once we get into guitar tones. But for now, let's just keep that in mind, an amplifier or an audio interface. And then at last, we would have the microphone. If you want your first song or album to be instrumental, that's totally fine with me. But let me ask you one question, do you ever intend on singing? Like ever on your songs? If the answer is yes, then just consider doing it right now, because the sooner you start singing, the sooner you will get out of that phase where you just completely sound like crap. If you know what I mean. If you start singing on your first song, then by the time you hit your second or third album, you will already sound pretty decent. Whereas if you start singing on your third album, then you're gonna sound pretty crap on that third album. So I'm just saying, if you start very soon, then you will get out of that shitty phase also very soon, okay? So, yeah, now let's see how we plug all of this together, starting with the guitar. First I'm going to talk about how you can connect your amp to your PC, and then I'm going to talk about how you can connect your guitar to the interface. So, depending on what you want to do, you can skip ahead to see the interface portion, or you just can continue watching and see the amp portion. I'd imagine that most of you probably already know how to connect your guitar to an amp. You just plug one end into the guitar and one end into the amp. In my case, I'm going to use this wireless transmitter because I hate cables. Once you have your guitar plugged in, all you need to do is connect your amp to the PC. In my case, I could do that with a USB cable, although I think most of your amps probably don't have USB port. So instead, I'm just going to show you the way I used to do it with my old amp, which is going out of the headphone jack and into the mic input of your computer. If you have a laptop with only one headphone jack, you could do what my friend Moon of Blood used to do, which is buy an aux to USB adapter and plug it in that way. But either way, once you're plugged in, go to your audio settings, go to recording and find the input where your guitar signal is coming from. If you turn on your amp and play a little, you should be able to see the level going up and down on at least one of your inputs. That should be your guitar. And if you want to, you can rename it so it's less confusing. But now let's get to the interface. Plug one end of the cable or transmitter in the guitar and the other in your interface. Once plugged in, make sure that the pad is turned off, crank the gain up a little and play something on your guitar. Some strumming, palm muting, whatever. If you see the clipping LED light up, turn the gain down a little bit and play again. And now you just repeat that until the clipping LED doesn't light up anymore, no matter how aggressive you play the guitar. And that should be the perfect level. Now, when it comes to microphones, I could probably make an entire video just focusing on them. But for the sake of this video, I'm just going to talk about USB microphones and XLR microphones. USB microphones like the Blue Yeti or Razer microphones are pretty much just plug and play. You plug them in, make sure you have a little bit of input, and you're pretty much good to go. But when it comes to microphones that use XLR, well, they're a little bit different. You can plug them into your PC if you have an adapter, but they need a lot of gain, and some, like this one, need phantom power. So if you were to plug them into your PC, they would, one, be very noisy and quiet, and they would probably sound like shit. So I would recommend just investing some money into an interface. It doesn't even have to be an expensive one. You can go for something like the Scarlett Solo or some of the Behringer interfaces. They're pretty cheap, and an interface is an investment that you just won't regret. They just make a lot of things easy and they will last you for years. But now, once you have your mic plugged in, you want to make sure that the gain is right. But that can be a little bit tricky because the voice is a very dynamic instrument. You can be very quiet and whispery, but you can also get very loud, and especially in metal, you can scream. So finding good gain is going to be very hard. One tip that I can give you is just avoid clipping at all costs, because clipping sounds like ass, basically. So just avoid that. But now that everything is plugged in and hopefully working, we can go over to the computer and take a look at FlStudio.
Alright, there we are, and now we just need to get our signals into FlStudio itself. I hope that you guys with an interface have already installed all the drivers that you need. Just Google it or look it up on YouTube and I'm sure you'll find a tutorial somewhere. But now, let's go to Options and Audio Settings. And I'm pretty sure that when you first open up FlStudio, it should use FlStudio Audio, so let's go with that. If you don't know what the sample rate is, I would just keep that at 48,000. Unless you have like a really bad PC or slow laptop. In that case, I would use 44.1 kHz. It's just going to be easier for your CPU to handle. But in the case of this tutorial, I'm just going to keep 48,000. Now, when we click on this little black button, we should see a few more options. In this case, the buffer length. The buffer length, to keep it simple, is basically just how much time you give your processor to process the audio. So if the buffer length is like really low, and it's going to be like super quick, so it's going to be really useful for recording. You hit the guitar string and pretty much immediately you will hear yourself. The problem is when you give your CPU so little time to process the audio, you might get clicks and pops, especially when you have projects that have a lot of effects and instruments in them. In that case, you will have to put the buffer length a little bit higher. But if you give your CPU more time to process the audio, that also means that you're going to get more delay. So let's say you hit the guitar string, you're going to hear yourself like half a second later. And that's going to throw you off completely when you're playing. So if you do end up having to do that, I would recommend to you mute your guitar in FlStudio and take off one headphone. And then you'll be able to hear the backing track and the metronome on one ear and your guitar in real time on the other. I think input and output kind of explains itself. You just pick your guitar or microphone, whatever you want to record. And the output, in my case, would be my headphones. Now, if a buffer length of 256 is still not fast enough, you might want to try Audio for All. If you don't have that, just Google it and it should be pretty easy to find and install. Then when we click on this, you should be able to see this window right here. And as you can see, you can put the buffer size like way lower, all the way down to 64, which is really fast. However, some CPUs can't handle that fast, so you'll have to wait and see if your CPU can handle that. Now, if I were to select an input right here, you can see that I don't really get any signal, even though I know that I have this microphone plugged into this Realtek device. That's because some of the inputs are hidden. You have to click on this little wrench and then on this extension. And then we can already see right here that the audio mic input is turned off. So we'll have to enable that right there. And now when I click on my mic input, I should be able to see the meter go up as soon as I talk. Nice, that works. However, in my case, I'm going to go back to the UMC audio driver, which is for my interface. And I'm going to set the buffer length to 128 because that just seems to work for me. And now I should have all the inputs of my interface. Hell yeah. Let's see if everything works. Input 3 is my microphone. Hell yeah. And input 1 should be my guitar. Nice. But we're not here to play. We're here to plan our song and figure stuff out, like the tempo and stuff like that. So first, we need an idea. That could be a melody, that could be a riff, that can be anything. And luckily, I'm a guitar player and I write riffs all the time. And sometimes there's a cool riff that I write and then I decide to record it onto my phone, which I did a few days ago. Let's hear what I got. And that gives us already a little bit of information. We have the speed and we have the tuning, which is in my case drop A. Now we just need to set the speed in FlStudio, and that is very important. And I'll show you why in a second. Let's try 160. Okay, let's play on every tick. That's a little bit slow. Let's play it like double time. Yeah, that's a little bit too fast. Let's put it at 120. Oh, that's perfect. Nice. Okay, Well, then we already have our tempo and our tuning. The reason you want to set your tempo like right at the beginning is because it will make things so much easier in the end, especially when you start programming drums. For example, let's just record with the metronome real quick. And if you want to program drums, all you need to do is put the kick on like every beat. You don't have to manually figure out where every hit is. You can just go by the grid. And if everything works, you should be able to just click play and everything should line up. So that's why you want to set the tempo like right at the beginning, because once you start getting into programming MIDI stuff like drums, orchestra, whatever, you want that stuff to be on the grid because it will make your life so much easier. So just good. So now that we have that, we should figure out what mood we want our song to be in. And that's relatively easy. You just need to pick some notes that evoke a certain feeling. For example, if I play this, it sounds very happy and neutral. But if I play this, that sounds kind of badass. That sounds kind of heavy. So it all depends on the notes that you're playing, and those few notes can convey quite a lot of feeling. If you want to, you can just pick 4 chords and base everything on that. For example, in my song Chance, we have when we're given a chance, we won't take it for granted, we'll be standing side by side. Or in my deathcore song, I actually did the same. I just picked 4 chords and then I put you might wonder where you fell, thought you did well, welcome my friend to hell. So yeah, using 4 chords can work perfectly fine. You don't have to come up with insane riffs for every part of your song. Sometimes a few notes is all you need. So now that we've got all of that figured out, we can go to the arrangement. And this is going to be a very important step because the arrangement is usually what cracks you up at the end. Alright, so that riff that I just played is 100% an intro. I think that's pretty obvious to most of us. But I feel like if I transition into a verse right after that, that would feel weird. So I'm going to put a main riff in there, and then we're going into the verse. And how to write riffs for intros, main riff, verse, and so on. I'm going to talk about that not in the next video, but the video after that. Now, verses are interesting because sometimes you have 2 different riffs in the same verse. Sometimes you have a build-up, sometimes you have a bridge. It can be very different. In fact, let me pull up Chance again, and let's play the verse. So here we have a first riff, verse A, and now we go up, and now we have the B riff, or verse 2, whatever you want to call it, or the bridge, or the build-up, whatever, which is slightly different and higher than the first riff. And from there, we go into the chorus. Rane, take it from here. And after the chorus, we go back to the first riff that was played in the first verse. Except there's no vocals. And then we go into verse 2. So you could call that portion like the main riff or the bridge into the second verse. And here, as you can hear, we did not play the second riff again. We just went straight from riff A into the chorus. We did not play verse B. So there's a lot of things that you can do. And what you want to do is something that you will probably find out while you're recording it, because you will be like, this feels kind of too short, this feels kind of too long, and you'll be like, okay, I'm gonna add a B riff here, I'm gonna take it away here, I'm going to keep vocals out of here, blah 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 blah. So you can plan that ahead in the arrangement, but that's probably going to change. That's why I said earlier that plans change, and that's totally okay. You don't have to do things one by one. So yeah, in this case, I'm going to include a build-up. I'm actually going to try and put in as much as I can so that I can show you guys how to write all that different stuff. So this tutorial here is as informative as it can be. And then after the build-up, we're of course going into the chorus. After the chorus, similar to what I did in Chance, I'm going to put a riff in between the chorus and when my vocals come back in. In that case, that will be the main riff. Then we go back into the verse. And then I could go back into the build-up and chorus, but instead I'm going into a solo and then back into the chorus. Then after the chorus, we go into a bridge that leads into a breakdown. Hell yeah. And because we only have 2 choruses so far, I'm going to go back into the chorus. And then after that, we're going into an outro. I would recommend that you don't make these things too long. Your first song doesn't have to be a 10-minute epic, okay? If you want to write progressive metal and like make a 10-minute song, well, that's fine with me, but that's going to make things a lot harder for you. I would recommend just stick to a somewhat simple arrangement like I'm doing right now, and you will be golden. All right, there we are. And if we want to work on our guitar tone, then maybe we should record some guitar, hey? If you want to record something, just go to your mixer and select a channel, any channel except the master channel. Don't do that. And you go over here and just select the input that your guitar is plugged into. In my case, that would be input 1. So let's do that. Sounds good. And now you just go up here and click on this little button and it should go red. And usually there would be a pop-up, and there I think you just record audio into playlist or something like that. I'll put a picture up, don't worry. But before we record, it's going to count in 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. Boom. And you don't want to start immediately. Like you don't want to go 2, 3, 4. Because we're going to have this like super abrupt beginning, which is going to sound very unpleasant. So what you should do instead is wait until it clicks 8 times. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Because now it's going to record the very beginning of your strum. And it's going to sound much nicer. Hell yeah. But now that we know that, let's think of a riff real quick and record. Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. And now we do what's called double tracking, which basically means whatever I just recorded, let's record it again. Nice. And the reason we do that is because usually we hear these signals only from the center. Whether we're listening to this with our right ear or our left ear, we're going to hear exactly the same. So it's gonna sound like it's coming from the center. But if we record twice, we can pan one to the very left and the other one to the very right. And because of very small nuances in our playing and in audio waves and whatever, it's going to sound absolutely huge. It's going to sound like it's coming from the walls. I don't know. Now, if you don't hear a difference, that's probably because you don't have headphones on. So put some headphones on. We're talking about music here. Or your headphones are mono, which that would be bad. But hell yeah, now that we have our guitar part, let's work on the tone. So let's get some plugins in here. The first one we're going to use is an amp simulator called Emissary, or Emissary. I don't know how to pronounce it, but here it is. And in fact, it's free, so you can go download it and put it in your VST folder on FlStudio. And if you want to know how to get plugins into FlStudio, we can watch a tutorial on that. There are a lot on YouTube. But now, let's have a listen to what this plugin sounds like. That's pretty bad. Okay, let's try a different one, shall we? Crunchman V3. Also free. Let's hear what it sounds like. Slightly better, I guess, but still kind of weird. Okay, let's try something different. Profet, a pedal, not a guitar amp. Let's listen to it. Interesting, but weird still, huh? I must be missing something. And yes, I am, of course. What I'm missing is an impulse response loader. In my case, I'm going to use NUT-IR. Now, what is an impulse response? Well, it's basically a simulator for a cabinet. So it's going to take that weird sounding guitar signal and it's going to make it sound like it's coming out of a real speaker. And that's what's going to give it that noise guitar tone that we're looking for. Let me show you. So what you're going to need is you're going to have to look for impulse responses. There are a lot of free ones on the internet. For example, ML Sound Labs have one that's called Best IR in the World. Okay, let's use that and let's see what it sounds like. And as you can tell, that sounds a lot better. It sounds a little bit muffled right now, but it's definitely better than what we had before. Let's try some of the other ones that we have here. And as you can tell, I used the same plugin. I used this pedal right here. But just using different impulse responses can make your guitar sound completely different. So when I was starting to make music, I thought, oh my god, these amp simulators all sound crap. But nope, it's actually the impulse responses that I used, because the impulse response can make a huge difference. So just keep that in mind when you're making guitar tones. So let's listen through some of the amps that we have here and see which one we like the best. Let's try Emissary again. Sounds pretty decent, not gonna lie. Let's try the Crunchman. Let's listen to the Prophet. Okay, that one sounds pretty cool as well. I think the Emissary and the Prophet sound the most modern, so I'm going to play with those a little bit. So let's go to the Emissary amp and let's figure out some settings, right? Shall we? And with the Emissary, you can actually switch between clean and distorted, which is pretty cool. So in case you need a clean guitar tone, Emissary has you covered. Okay, so here's something. Some people think that more gain means heavier, cooler, more chuck, 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 but not necessarily. You just gotta play around with it and find a good setting, but it's not necessarily more gain, more heavy. Ooh, and then I just noticed we're currently listening to mono, so we still hear it from the center. So you gotta make sure that all plugins are put into stereo and not IR, stereo. And now that sounds huge, hell yeah. Another thing that, especially when you're starting out, you might think that bass is always good, but not necessarily, especially on a guitar. There is a time and place for bass on your guitar, but usually bass just makes your mix muddy and full and like, what, too full. It's just going to sound bloated and weird. You can still add some bass afterwards in the end if you feel like you're missing some, but usually I would recommend having it down or like centered. And I'm a big fan of like very bright guitar tones, so I'm going to put the mids and the treble up. And there we go. We have a pretty alright guitar tone. If you wanted to, you could add an equalizer, like this one right here. And let's see what we got here. We have quite a lot of low end. So I could, if I wanted to, roll that off, because as I said, it's just going to make the mix muddy. And everything you see on the side right here is just noise. However, that noise can make it sound a little bit brighter and nicer. So you don't always want to completely cut it off. So you might want to put a cut off right here and listen to it. Does it sound good? Does it sound bad? Do you want it removed or do you actually want to keep it? Yeah, like I said, if I cut it away, it just sounds muffled. But if I keep it, it sounds very bright. So I think I'm going to keep it. And then you can make some more adjustments to the tone. For example, if you want that Metallica tone with like no mids, you can turn those down if you want to. And yeah, you can just play around and make your tone sound nice. But now, here's a little thing. You've probably noticed yourself that there's a lot of noise. And to get rid of that, you will need a gate. Lucky for you, there's a free one, and this one is called G-Gate. So don't think that you need to buy expensive gear and plugins to get great tones. There are a lot of great free plugins out there. Gates, amp sims, and impulse response loaders. There's just a lot of free stuff out there, and you do not need to buy expensive stuff. So let's figure out our threshold, which is when it's going to start kicking in. For example, if the gate is supposed to be at like -1 decibel, then yeah, nothing is gonna come through except that. So we're gonna have to make it a little bit less aggressive. Let's put it on 26. So let's do the opposite. Let's make it a little bit let's make it less sensitive. This is what happens if you don't have it sensitive enough. A few sounds are gonna cut through. So you wanna make sure that this is at like, yeah, 38 works, at least for me. You might have to play around with it a little bit. Attack and fade, yeah, again, just play around with it. I think attack 1 millisecond works, and the fade, you might want to pull it a little bit down. You don't want it to like slowly fade out, you want it to kick in really fast. Well, not really fast, but you get the point. Yeah, that sounds about right. Hell yeah. And that seems to be everything that we need. We need a gate to make sure that there's no noise coming through. We need an amplifier, or an amp sim in this case, to give us the tone. And then we need an impulse response loader that makes sure that it doesn't sound like absolute crap. And then at the end, if you want to, you can do some more adjustments like equalizing. And now we have this tone. And you might think, well, that sounds kind of crappy. Well then, let me tell you something. Context matters. Let's put in some drums, bass, and some orchestral elements, and let's see what you're thinking now. Okay, to be fair, the tone still sounds a little bit old school. I didn't really spend that much time on it, but you get the point. Context will make your tone sound a lot better. You probably won't get a perfect guitar tone just on itself. You will need drums and bass to have it sound like really full and complete. So I hope this video helped you understand how to get a good guitar tone. Double check your guitars, make them left, right. Make sure you have a gate, an amp simulator, an impulse response loader, and maybe some EQing if you want to. And then you should be good to go. And our song, or my song in this case, is going to start with an intro. So let's get our guitar tones out that you hopefully made with me in part 3. And actually, I want to give you guys a little update. I found this little amp right here by NanX called Ninja, which also sounds pretty cool, and it's free. So if you like the sound, then go ahead and go download it. But now let's talk what we're all here for, which is how to write riffs for specific parts of a song. And since we're starting with the intro, well, let's talk about intros. In my case, my song starts with a riff where I pick everything individually. However, you can do a lot of stuff when it comes to intros. For example, you could do some chords. And then on top of that, play some kind of melody. Or you could combine the two and play chords and melody somehow. Something like that. Or what I actually did in some of my other songs is play a melody. And then later introduce another riff that goes on top of it. And then once the verse or the chorus comes in, you can take that riff and make it a little bit spicier. Something like that. Or you can go totally bananas and do something that I did in my song Trapped in a Bubble, which is taking a tapping pattern and making a riff out of that. It's quite long. And so on. So there's a lot of ways that you can start a song. In fact, I have another one for you. You could just start with the chorus, like in my song Chance, that I keep mentioning for some reason. But instead of singing the chorus, I have a lead guitar that's playing the melody there. So you have quite an array of things that you could do for the intro of your song. And I can't really help you pick one. You just gotta find one that works best for what you want to achieve. And then just go with that and try writing something interesting. I hope that you find something, but now let me record my intro. There is one tip that I can give you though. If you have a transition from clean into distorted, make sure that you actually have a transition and not just go from A to B. For example, I have this little riff right here. So you have this like little pause until you slide into the main riff. So if you have an intro where it's drastically different from the main riff or wherever you're transitioning into, you should have like some kind of transition. It doesn't have to be like this, where you have like these little stops. It could be like a riser that like, it could be a drum fill that like leads into the next riff. Just don't have it just go from A to B. Have like a little transition that leads into your next riff.
Time flies by.
Hello Max, how are you doing? I hope that you keep pursuing on.
But now, that is the intro of my song. Let's get to how to write a main riff. And that is honestly quite hard to explain because every song does it differently. However, Metallica is an insanely good example for this because they do this quite often. For example, in Master of Puppets you have this intro riff. And then you go into the main riff. And the reason that's a main riff is because it actually comes again after the chorus, where it goes, Master, Master. Or in Enter Sandman, Exit Light, rough to Never Never Land. That's probably one of the most popular main riffs out there. So Metallica is an awesome example for where to put main riffs and how to write them. Another one would be Five Finger Death Punch, Wash It All Away. Wash it all away. Or something like that. And by the way, if you guys know any examples, feel free to put them down in the comments so people can listen to them and get an idea for their own main riffs. But now let me record my own main riff and then let's go to the verse. Hell yeah. Having an extended portion of that riff like that can actually be a pretty cool transition into the next riff. What you could also do is just chuck on a note for a second. For example, me and the band wrote this riff a while ago. Did you notice how clean that transition is into the next riff? That's a way that you could do that. Or actually the intro of that song is actually pretty much the perfect example of how you could do a transition. Oops, okay, lags there, but those little riffs can really add and spice up your transitions. And yeah, I hope that kind of inspires you to write your own. And let's move on with the verse. Now the verse is interesting because in most songs they're usually relatively simple. For example, that tapping riff that I showed you earlier, that just goes into. So except those and the little licks that I put in there, it's pretty much just chugging on one note. And actually, Metallica, another great example. What comes after? Well, basically just. It's just chugging, or again, five-finger death punch. It's really just very simple chugging on one note and maybe some licks and note changes here and there. So you don't need to go crazy on your verse riff. However, if you want to, of course you can. For example, in my song Responsibility, I used to do this. So that's also pretty cool. And you might have noticed there that I did a note change. Having note changes in your verse can be pretty cool. Helps give the verse a little bit more of a vibe. Because if you just stick to one note through the entire song, it gets a little bit boring. So changing that up would be cool. It gives the song a little bit of a vibe. And yeah, it can just add a lot to change the notes every once in a while. You don't need to do the 4 chords like in the chorus, but it's nice to have a little bit of change. Yeah. So I think I'm going to record my verse. My verse is actually going to have a little bit of a few pauses in there. It's going to be something like. So it's going to have like these somewhat long pauses, and then we're going into some chords right there, just to add a little bit of notation to the song. And I think that will be like a pretty cool rhythm that you can just headbang to, especially when the drums come in. But drums will be a topic that we'll be discussing in the next few videos. I don't know which one yet, but we'll talk about it. Always make sure that your riffs start where they need to start and end where they need to end, so that when you put both of your riffs together, oops, that they just transition perfectly. And later when the drums come in, you won't even notice that there was a transition. It's just going to sound natural, like you played it all in one go. Which technically you could do if you wanted to, but usually when you're writing the song, you just want to put it down so you don't forget it. In my opinion, there's nothing wrong with splicing every part together. There's some studios that like to just record the whole song in one go, but if you don't even know how your song goes, because you haven't written it yet, well then how are you supposed to play it in one go? So just don't worry about it. If you want to splice every part, then that's totally fine. But now let's take a look at our sheet again, because after the verse we have a build-up. And build-ups are interesting. Similar to chants, you could do a completely different riff that has even a completely different root note. For example, I could go up to... and then back into the chorus. Something like that. Or you can just stay on the note and, for example, chug it and increase the intensity. And then go into the chorus like that. There's a bunch of stuff that you can do. Usually build-ups aren't that insane when it comes to riffage. For example, in my song Trapped in a Bubble, we have this build up. We come from a verse right here and then build up. It's just a note, another note, another note, another note. And on top of that you have this like... and then we go into the chorus. So you can really just go... You can just pick a few notes and then boom, transition into your chorus like that and add like a little melody on top of it. Something like that. So yeah, build-ups usually aren't that complicated. However, having that said, if you want to have a key change in there, like something like chants, you're really gonna have to figure out which notes work and which don't, which feel too awkward and which feel good. That, for example, could kind of work. That would not work at all. So I just gotta figure out which notes can work together. And what you could also do is put a pause in there, for example. Where you can put like a drum solo or synthesizer or do bass solo. You can do a lot of stuff with it. Basically just go wild with your imagination and try stuff out.
I won't interfere cause you're the one who makes the plan. You cannot know that there's a fighter in you, there's even more you do that nobody else in you. This is where we don't have to attack. Leave yourself from none, there's no need to stop. It's all we have to do. Fight through the pain. But behind our back, my shadow's slowly growing in. We have to fight through the darkness.
How things have changed, go on, jump for yourself. Cause no one else will help you put this book onto another self. You brought this upon yourself. You just look your way. You brought this upon yourself. You've been pushed out of the fucking cage. You've never been so lost.
But now let me record my build-up. And of course, always make sure to record twice. Once you have your audio signals in FlStudio, make sure to pan one to the left and one to the right. Double tracking in metal and rock is just... that really is the holy bible of recording rock and metal. Double tracking your guitars is just industry standard. But now that we have a build-up, we can go into the chorus. And choruses are usually easy, but that depends on what you want to do. For example, if you want to do a melodic chorus, like a metalcore or any other metal that is deathcore or death metal, then you can just pick notes and play those. Easy as that. If you want to do something a little bit more metalcore-ish, then you could add like a few extra notes. Something like that. And if you're doing something like deathcore, well then, go wild. I hope that you guys have some ideas. I certainly do have one, so let me record real quick. Bada boom, there we have, or there I have my chorus. And now, if we judge by our little arrangement sheet by here, I should go back to the main riff and the verse. So let's do that real quick. But actually, I think I don't want the main riff to be as long as after the intro, because I played it twice there. I think I only want to play it once here, so we can transition faster into the next verse. Because otherwise, I think it would get boring. And here's a little trick. Now we're getting into automation. That's something I didn't think I would touch on, but hell yeah, let's do it. Now, automation is basically when you just want to automate a parameter. Something like volume or panning or pitch, which is what I'm going to do, because I don't have a tremolo, but I would like this to go down at the end. So you just right-click on the parameter you want to change, in this case pitch, and then create automation clip. It's probably going to make an automation clip that's as long as your song. So make sure to select how long you want the automation clip to be. So click on that, create automation clip, and then it will only be as long as the selected part. So I want those to go down. But as soon as that happens, the clip is going to get longer. So in order to avoid that, I'm going to use stretch as the mode. The time stretching mode, that's what it's called. Okay, cool. And now I should have... Hell yeah, actually, let's try turning it up. That is actually kind of cool. Okay, let's use that, I guess. That is actually something that I could play live. I just have to bend real hard. So that's a good thing. Now, we have our verse. Oops, hi microphone. And then after that, I think it says we have a solo after the second verse. Okay, so how do you write a solo and what do you put under the solo? Now, let's talk about that. Now, when it comes to solos, we have to pay attention to two things, actually. One being, of course, the solo, but two, what we put under it, of course. And there's a few things that you can do, obviously. The first one being just using the main melody as a foundation for your solo. An example would be Arch Enemy with their song Nemesis. Here we have the main melody. And the guitars are just going to keep playing that while the solo comes on top. Bam, 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 bam. And that's actually what quite a lot of bands do. And not just in melodic death metal, even in deathcore we see that happen quite a lot. And then we have Shadow of Intent with The Heretic Prevails. Here we have the main melody. And once the solo comes in, the guitars are just going to mirror that. As you can hear. My god. Shadow of Intent slams. I like them quite a lot. But that's of course not the only way that you can do it. Suicide Silence, in their song You Only Live Once, they use their build-up riff. Or the bridge riff. I don't know if you would call this a bridge or build-up. However you call it, here they used it. And the way that I would probably do it would be the Lamb of God way, which is writing a completely new riff for the solo. And the thing with this riff in particular is they're not playing any melodies, they're not really doing anything super interesting, they're just playing muted notes and occasionally throwing in some triples, and that's all. And that's actually something that I should mention. They're not just playing on one note, like you do in the verse, for example. There it's pretty usual that you just chuck on one or two notes. But here in the solo, they're actually playing quite a few notes. And that's actually why so many bands use their main melody as background for the solo, because it's very melodic. Because a melodic background, a foundation, will elevate the solo like whoo. So if you want to write a cool solo, make sure that your foundation allows you to make a really cool and melodic solo. Even if you want to do deathcore, like I showed you earlier, Lorna Shore and Shadow of Intent also put their main melodies just under it. And if that isn't heavy enough for you, well then, Infinite Annihilator, here we go. Also, pretty melodic. Like even in heavy music like this, the solo is not always, but most of the time very melodic, and so you need a melodic foundation to elevate that. So yeah, so that's what I'm going to do, and see you after I'm finished recording. Alright, now that sounds pretty cool. Pretty cool. It's going to be interesting to write a solo for that though, because of all the chord changes, but that just makes things more interesting. So I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily. But now that we have our solo, we should probably make a solo tone. Which honestly probably isn't even that much different from our original tone. To make a separate guitar tone, we can just right click on this, then click on File, and then Save Mixer Track State As. But instead of clicking on it, we just hold and drag it onto a new mixer track. And now on both mixer track 1 and 2, we will have the same effects. Except that I will put a reverb in this one. And let's see what we got here. Sounds pretty cool, pretty cool. I think I'm also going to add a delay, although I think delay would be better if it's like not too strong. Yeah, I guess that kind of works. Now, when it comes to writing solos, oh my god. Now that's a topic I could probably make an entire video just on that. So let's go by it one by one. How could you start your solo? A lot of people just slide into the root note, which in this case would be A, I think. So you just slide into that. And from there you can go pretty much wherever you want to. But honestly, if you just repeat that and stay on the same note, then it's going to get boring. So I would go a little bit further down the board or a little bit higher. In my case, I'm going to go lower because I haven't changed my strings in a while, and especially the higher strings, they should just sound like ass. But to spice a solo like this up, you could add a little bit more variety in terms of tempo. For example, instead of just doing... You could do something like... Or like triples. And just add that to the solo. What you could also do is do like little licks. Just repeating a few notes. Or, of course, very popular, hammer-ons and pull-offs. Extended to that, you could do, of course, tapping. What you could also do is like hammer on a note and then go back to 0. Or go into a new melody. What's also really cool is when you repeat melodies, but change them slightly. For example, oh yeah, like this one. Where the melody is the same, just the notes change. What you could also do is little runs. And something that I definitely need to do more often is don't fret to do a little bit of string skipping. Because when you make big jumps from one note to another, it can make it like really interesting. Whereas if you just go... It sounds kind of boring. It just sounds like you're going up and down a note ladder. Whereas if you skip a few notes and make a melody out of it... It can sound really freaking cool. Yeah, and you can do more advanced techniques like sweep picking. To be fair, I'm not that good at it, but you could do that if you wanted to. And yeah, out of all these techniques and things that you can do, you can try writing a solo. And it's really just putting one note after another and another and another. And when one sounds really bad, you just change it to one that sounds good. And then at the end you will have a few notes that sound good in context. Okay, I think I got something. Let's see if I can remember the whole solo. See if I can play it. Okay, I think that works. Nice. But now that that's done, we can go back to the chorus. Hell yeah. Where do we go after that? Bridge and breakdown. Okay, so I do not need to copy the main riff. All right, now that that's set, how do we write a bridge? Well, a bridge is kind of like the build-up, honestly. It's just a filler. Honestly, I could probably swap the build-up and the bridge, because my build-up isn't really a build-up. It's literally just... And that's pretty short for a build-up. I would say that's more like a bridge. So actually, in that case, let's just change this from build-up to bridge, and this from bridge to build-up. How do we write a build-up? Well, that depends on the part that comes after. You can tease the riff that comes after. For example, we have this song. You could do something like that, or you could just hold the note and do like a little drum thingy. And then drop into it. There is a lot of stuff that you can do as always. I would recommend search for some examples, listen to some of your favorite songs and see if they have a build-up anywhere, and take some inspiration from that if you want to. Maybe think of something else. Actually, I think in my case, I'm going to start with the breakdown, because my build-up is basically just going to copy whatever the breakdown is doing and just turning the intensity down a little bit so that you have like a little tease of the breakdown, and when it hits, you get the full deal. And yeah, let's write a breakdown. Breakdowns can be relatively easy to write. You can do something like just taking a rhythm and making a breakdown out of that.
This is but a taste. This is but a taste of how much you can suffer. You can keep on living life. Nothing can be saved.
Or you could do what Lorna Shore usually does, which is just go absolutely crazy. where you have like a bunch of rhythm changes and noises and other stuff. How do you write stuff like that? That's honestly very hard to explain. You just try to put as many different time signatures as you can in there. Well, not time signatures, but like different rhythms. For example, you can do 4/4 or triples and do them back to back. Put like 2 notes in there. And just do experimental stuff like that, and occasionally just tremolo picking. So spend some time on those, and I hope that you come up with something cool. But now, let me try to come up with something cool. Whew, okay, I got it recorded. Holy macaroni. That riff is balls. Ooh, that is a good question. Do I want a transition and go into a second breakdown? Because right after the breakdown we go back into the chorus. And that would be bad because we only just come out of the chorus. So it would make sense to extend the breakdown a little bit. Damn. I kind of like that. It's simple, but cool. Okay, and one thing I should have mentioned very early in the video actually, when you're recording your second guitar track, I would recommend muting that track so you don't hear 2 guitar parts being played at the same time, because that can throw you off and can make you think that you're playing better than you're actually playing, because you're not hearing your mistakes correctly. And then we go back into the transition. How is that gonna sound though? I think it might work once the drums come in. Once we have everything together, we're probably gonna find out. And if it doesn't work, well then I'll just have to write a transition or rewrite some of the parts. That is fine. Don't be afraid to change stuff. That's something that I used to not do. And that was a mistake, because now I have songs that I'm not 100% cool with. But now, let's get back to the build-up, because as I mentioned earlier, I want to base my build-up riff on the breakdown. And since we have a breakdown now, I can start writing the build-up riff. So, let's record. Nice. I think that's a cool transition. Now all we need is an outro. And for the outro we can do so many things. I'm going to repeat the main riff because I feel like it just fits, because we have the chorus before that. And then I'm going to put another riff behind that, probably with a melody on top of it, just so it doesn't get boring. We don't want to repeat the same riffs like 5 minutes. Also thought about going back to the clean riff from the beginning, but I think that would be a little bit... I don't know if that would fit after such a heavy chorus and main riff and stuff like that. So I'm probably just gonna write a new riff for this one. So let me quickly think about this and then let's record. If you want to write your own outro, there are too many ways to cover. You could repeat a certain riff, you could write a new riff, you could go clean, you could stay distorted, There's so many things that you can do. And honestly, you don't even have to write an outro. You can just end it after the chorus or an open chord. Let an open chord ring out, and that could be your outro. You don't have to write an extra part for that. And if you want to, you can just whatever feels right, I guess. And if you wrote all those parts, I'm sure you can write this one part without my help. Before we jump into how to write bass, let's make sure that all of us even have a bass, because when I started making music, I certainly did not have one. So let's talk about what alternatives you have if you don't have an acoustic bass. Actually, I'm just going to put a link in the description where someone talks you through about 21 free bass VSTs, and you can just pick whichever one you like and sounds the best to you. And once you have your plugin installed, all you do is you click on this little arrow right here and click on Refresh Plugin List. If you don't see your plugin yet, go to Options and then to Manage Plugins. And if the folder that your plugin is installed in isn't listed here, just click on this little plus and look for the folder where your VST is put in. If you still don't see it, click on this little plus icon and then on More Plugins, and then you should be able to find all the plugins that FlStudio could find. I'm going to be using ABPL, which is Ample Bass P2 Lite, and yeah, I find that this bass sounds pretty good. If you tune the first string down, you can even go as low as drop D, which is pretty damn good. So are we using this bass? Sadly, I couldn't find any 5-string basses, so if we want to play like drop A, I would just have to play the normal A string instead. But yeah, I think that's still pretty fine, because I mean, that still sounds pretty damn good to me. But now that we have our bass, how do we program it? Well, we're going to pick a pattern. On the left, we can see if we already have a few used ones. In this case, I have not used any patterns, so we're just going to use pattern 1 and place it on the timeline. My first part doesn't have any bass. It's just the clean intro, so I'm just going to put it over here where the second part begins. And I know that my part starts da with an A. And usually I would have to pick the A2, but well, because I don't have a 5-string bass plugin, I will have to use A3 instead. So now I just repeat whatever the riff is doing. We have da da, so we just da da. Okay, that sounds a little bit weird how it ends just like that, so we're just going to make the notes a little bit longer. And then it goes da da. So we go down and up. And now you just copy whatever your riff is doing. And when you're done, it should look something like this. And it depends on what you want to do. If you want to, you can just copy whatever your guitar is doing. For example, I also copied the melodies here. But you don't really have to do that. You can just stay on the root note if you want to. But more about that once we're getting into writing. Because I will be using my real bass. So let's go. So I know I might have said that you just copy what you're doing on the guitar, but actually there's something that you should absolutely avoid. Actually, there are two things. The first thing is, don't play chords. Even power chords. They might sound cool on their own. They sound pretty damn cool, not gonna lie. If you want to do like a little bass intro, that's fine, I guess. But if you want to play below your guitar, like in this riff, for example, then you should probably just play the root note and nothing else. The second thing is palm mutes. They don't really work that well on the bass. So I would usually just avoid them, unless you want to play like really tight. And now let's get to how to write. Like I said, you just mirror whatever the guitar is doing. In my example, I just play. But this is where it gets interesting. You technically do not have to play the melodies, like... because you're probably not going to notice that anyway. You probably just want to stay on the root note. You just gotta figure out, do you want to play the melody or not? At the end, the bass is just there to give your song a foundation, the bass, and your guitar is what makes it all interesting and adds all those melodies. And then you have usually a lead guitar or some other lead layer like vocals or a synthesizer or whatever. If you have a really simple part like my intro, you can actually go a little bit crazy and write a new melody for that on your bass. That is actually something I did for a new song of mine. We start with this very clean intro. And then here comes the bass. And now we're back to just playing the root note. But now, let me record and then, yeah, I don't even know where to go from there. Now, looks like I have all my bass parts recorded. Well, this would be a very short video, wouldn't it? Well then, let's throw some more stuff in here. For example, let's mix our bass, because currently our bass sounds mediocre. So let's all put the bass parts on a track. I've already put them on track 3, okay. And yeah, let's throw some effects on our mixer track 3. Okay, so the first thing I will probably do in a bass is get out the equalizer and get rid of some of the mid frequencies. So if I pull this band up right here, this is what those mid frequencies sound like. Kind of boxy, and I don't even know how to describe it, I just don't like them. So if we pull those down a little bit, we get a very dark sounding bass. Now in mixing we have two main instruments that play the bass, which is, well, the bass and the kick drum. And you don't want them to fight over each other, you don't want them to cancel each other out and stuff like that. So there is a principle where you can either put the bass drum above the bass or below the bass. In my case, I have my bass drum below the bass at around 42 Hertz. That's pretty goddamn low. So I'm gonna make a cutoff at around 50, so that it doesn't that it doesn't fight with the kick drum. I'm gonna pull this a little bit up so we get a little bit of a boost, and hell yeah, this is what we get. Alright, additionally, I see this over here. That's probably just unwanted noise. I can't really hear it, so I probably don't have to get rid of it, but I don't know, it's sticking me in the eye like a needle. So I'm going to make band 7, whatever this is called. And boom, I'm gonna put it right where that thing is. And that should get rid of that weird thing, whatever that is. Now, if you want to sound like Korn, you just pull the high frequencies up. For me, that's a little bit extreme, so I'm going to pull those down. And yeah, that's how far equalizing goes. Oh, one thing I didn't touch on is actually you, of course, need a gate again, because there's going to be unwanted noise. When I stop playing bass, I want everything to just die. Like I said, some people want that distorted bass. I have a really good example here from Shadow of Intent. Hell freaking yeah, that's Blood in the Sands of Time, in case that interests you. In that case, you want some kind of distortion. You can use a pedal, you can use a bass amplifier or whatever. I actually have one that is called BOD by TSE Audio, a bass overdrive, and it sounds pretty damn cool. If I pull the drive all the way up, let's just do it for showcase purposes. Let's pull the low up a little bit, because it's bass. Ooh, presence should probably be a little bit higher. And yeah, I guess that's how you get that distorted bass down. Pretty easy and works super well. Now, here's a really freaking good question. Should you double track bass and put one to the left and one to the right? Honestly, that's one I haven't really figured out myself. Usually when you play guitar, some people actually record 4 times instead of 2 times and put 2 tracks to the left and 2 tracks to the right, because it just sounds more full and cool. But it also will sound a little bit more full. Like, you want bass to be tight usually. So I would recommend only using 1 track and playing that as tight as you can. I actually did like a hybrid back in the day, where I used my 8th string. I would play on the normal E string, the riff, and then I would play the riff again, but on the low E string of my 8th string. And I would play those with a bass tone left and right. But then I would record the actual bass and put that one in the center. So the 8th string was just there to like fill in the frequencies that would make it sound big and huge, but the bass would still have its own place in the center and would give it all the foundation that it needed. Try it out, but I would probably personally recommend just doing a single track. Now, in my opinion, this already sounds pretty damn good. It sounds pretty goddamn distorted, but well, fine. What you can put on there if you want to, that's something that I sometimes do with my bass, is I use the Sound Goodizer by FlStudio. I just use type A and crank it. Warning, this thing is freaking loud, so ooh. I just kind of like the way it sounds. It fits into my mixes pretty well. If you like it, put it on. If you don't, throw that shit out the window. Sounds pretty damn thick to me though, so I'm gonna keep it. And yeah, I hope that gives you an insight on how to do a bass tone. Before we can talk about how to program drums, let's make sure that you all even have drums. The first thing you could do is go here and look for FPC. This is a free plugin, which I think comes with FlStudio actually. Then you just go here, look for the preset Metal Kit or Rock Kit or whatever you want to use. And in my opinion, this doesn't even sound that bad, especially the kick drum and the snare. The toms, I guess they work, but especially the cymbals like the crash, and all the other cymbals, they sound kinda meh. So you might want to look for different samples there. Speaking of samples, you don't have to use those. You can just go on YouTube and search for metal drum samples, metal kick sample, and stuff like that, and create your own kit. For example, when I started making music and I didn't have any plugins, I downloaded these files and just used those in the beginning. But for this tutorial, I'm actually going to do something a little bit different. I'm not going to use a free plugin. Instead, I'm going to use EZdrummer. When I first bought it, I think it was around 120, so it's kind of expensive. But it just works and sounds pretty damn good. I'm going to use the Metal Machine kit because it just sounds good. But before we get into how to write, let's quickly go over the drum kit, because I think it's pretty important that you know what all these things are called, because I'm going to be naming them quite a lot throughout the video. So there's a few things you probably already know, like the kick drum, also known as bass drum, then the snare, the hi-hat. I hope you know that one, because that's pretty important as well. And the toms. Those two on the right are floor toms, because, well, they stand on the floor, but that doesn't really matter. What matters is that they are all some kind of tom. Now let's get to all of these cymbals. They're all crashes. But you might have noticed I skipped a few. The ones I skipped are China cymbals, and you will hear they have a certain texture, a certain tone that make them stand out. And then there's one left, which is the right cymbal. So I think it's relatively important to know what they are called, because, like, as I said, I'm going to be mentioning their names quite a lot, and yeah. Now let's get into writing. I'm gonna start with the intro. And honestly, I don't think we really need drums here, so I'm just gonna start halfway through right here. And what we see, especially in intros, is that the drummer with a stick just goes. So I'm gonna do something like that. Ooh, and here we already get into the first thing, which is velocity. Nice. So you just place your pattern, and then you click on this little icon right here to open up the piano roll, if it isn't already open. This might look different for you, especially if you're using samples, then you're probably not going to use the piano roll, you're just going to be dragging samples everywhere. So yeah, that's just another reason why it's important to know the names of the instruments, because otherwise this will be pretty complicated for you. So yeah. So I know that these two sound pretty good. So I'm going to be using those. I'm going to be placing them like this. And these ones like this, with a little bit of an offset. So we go left, right, left, right. And then to make that like, I'm going to be dragging the velocity with right click up and down. Actually, that didn't work. Let's do it again. Yeah. Let's see if that sounds all right. yeah, not too bad. Okay, and now I'm just going to fill out the empty space. I'm not using the kick drum, snare, or toms just yet because I think they would sound a little bit too extreme and punchy. So yeah, I'm going to just use the cymbals here a little bit. Now, to emphasize that ending riff, I am going to introduce the snare, so let's do that. I'm going to put the kick drum there just to give it like a little bit of a rhythm. Okay, what I'm noticing is this is way too quiet, so let's put some effects on here. This is just going to be for now. I'm going to mix the entire kit on its own later, but let's just throw one plugin on there. Another free plugin, of course. This one is called Camel Crusher, and I'm going to use the preset British Clean. I'm going to turn the tube and mech knobs down. And here's what that should sound like. Hell yeah! Alright, and now we enter the verse. And here's where things get interesting, because now I can actually teach you stuff. Now I can actually show you what you should do for parts. Well, what you could do, not what you should do. Obviously, you can do whatever. So this one is a little bit controversial, which is just replicating the riff with your kick drum. Some people say do it, some people say don't. Whatever sounds good to you. Some people like it, some people don't. I would say if you're starting out, it's probably easier, so just do that. And once you're a little bit more comfortable with programming drums, you can start doing a little bit more experimental stuff with your kick drum and snare. So for keeping it simple, let's just copy the riff with our kick drum. A little something like this. And now let's get to the snare. And the snare is kind of the dictator how fast your song feels. For example, you could go really slow. Make it sound like halftime. Then what I would consider normal speed. Or you could go even faster and make it sound like punk. So yeah, your snare is kind of the determining factor of how fast your song is going to feel. Next up is the crash. And the crashes are like that big boom moment. And the thing is, you don't really want that boom moment to go throughout the entire song. You don't want boom, boom, boom. You want boom, boom, boom. So only keep those at the beginning of a part. Well, you can splice them in here and there to make it exciting if you want to emphasize a certain element in your riff, for example. But unless you want to do anything like that, I would just keep them to the beginning. Like this. And yeah, now we just need one more element, and that is the hi-hat or the ride. Now the ride, as I said, is very common in breakdowns. And in my case, it would sound a little something like this. But I don't really like the sound of that, so I'm going to use the hi-hat instead. What you could also do with the hi-hat is play one that's like normal velocity, and then place one down, turn the velocity down, like this, and then you get this like dead. So that's also pretty cool. I do like the way the normal pattern sounds though, so I'm just going to do this. Now, like I said, you can use the other cymbals like the ride or the crashes to just spice your song up a little bit. In my case, I have done this. And also down here you can hear the toms a little bit. I usually like to put those in at the end as like a little fill. Nice. And once you have something that you're okay with, you can copy that if you want to. Honestly, you don't have to write the entire song by hand. When you're happy with a rhythm, you can just copy that and maybe change a thing here or two so it doesn't sound repetitive, but I think it's okay to do a little bit of copy and paste here and there. One thing that I would do though is change the endings, put in a little fill or something. So if for some reason you want to do triples or want to go even faster than the grid allows, then you just click on this little magnet and you can use whatever you want to. If we do triples, just click on 1/3 and then you will have triplets. Or 1/6 would also work for triples. That would be like pretty fast though. Or you can go with any of these if you need to go even faster than that. And yeah, let's listen to my little drum fill at the end of this riff. Hell yeah. If you want to, you can think about realism, which doesn't always work for me. Although that is pretty realistic. That's something that drummers do. They play 1-2 on the hand, 1-2 on the kick drum, then 1-2 on the hand again. So if you want to, you can think of that. For example, you can't do like on the toms and at the same time like play the hi-hat. It doesn't work. So if you want to, you can think of that, and that will make it sound even more realistic and make it less noticeable that it's programmed. Another thing that you can do to make it sound less programmed is, for example, with the hi-hats, because I'm using those quite a lot, click on this little wrench here and go to randomize. Make sure that pattern is turned off, otherwise it's going to look weird. And then go to levels, and I think it's bipolar? Yes. And then if you change the velocity, it's going to, well, change the velocity. Bipolar just means that it's going to go in both directions. If you turn that off, it's only going to go up in a randomized way or down in a randomized way. So depending on what suits your needs, you can play around with that. Now let's get into the verse. Okay, so let's do the same here with copying whatever the guitar's doing, because that's easy when you start out. Okay, fine, cool. Now let's add the snare. Yeah, let's add the crash, because that's on pretty much every one. So I'm just gonna put it there. But now I'm not going to use the open hi-hat. I think I'm going to use the muted one. Well, not muted, but closed hi-hat. What I could do is make it, like I said earlier, make one a little bit quieter than the other. That already sounds pretty cool. And what I could do here is make like a triplet rhythm, which would sound a little something like this. Now that sounds pretty damn rad. Boom, now the verse is done as well. I don't know if I can really say anything specific about the build-up or bridge in this case. It's just like an extension for the verse, I guess. I did add a little bit more variety in the build-up to make it sound just a little bit more interesting, and yeah, I hope this fits well. Let's listen to it. Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. Sounds pretty rad. Now for this chorus, I actually want this to sound a little bit slower and more open and full. So I'm going to use the open hi-hats, and I'm going to have the snare come in every second time. So it sounds more like halftime. And for the second half, I wanted to ramp up again with the snare. So let's do that. Hell yeah. And then we go back into the main riff. Ooh, okay, the solo is a little bit different from the verse. Actually, one thing I should show you. If you want to change something, for example, in the second verse, don't just go into the pattern and change something, because let's just say I put a weird-ass line of toms here. That weird line of toms that we see right here. is actually going to reappear in our first verse as well. But if you want to change something in your pattern, then you first need to click on this little icon right here and click on Make Unique. And this will basically create a new pattern and just copy whatever that pattern was. And now you can go in and change whatever, and it's not going to affect your first pattern that you just copied. When it comes to solos, it is okay to keep the drums a little bit more further back, same as the main riff below it, just so that the solo can stand out a little bit more. You can, of course, make it interesting and stuff. Just make sure that you just don't overdo it. You don't want to steal the spotlight from the guitars. And now we go into the build-up. Hell yeah! As I explained in the video where we were talking about the arrangement or the riffs, I believe, I said that you could do like a little drum solo for the build-up and stuff like that. So maybe I will find the space for that in here, especially when I play this open chord right here. Maybe I'll put some toms in there. So hell yeah, let's see what I can come up with here for this part. Alrighty, I think I got something cool. Hell yeah, that'll do, I think. That sounds pretty cool. Now we get into the breakdown, and breakdowns are shush. You really gotta think about, when do I want that to happen? When do I want that to happen? The drums can really make or break a breakdown, and I can't really help with that. In breakdowns, it's actually really common to copy what the guitar is doing with the kick drum and the snare. So if you want to do that, do that. Ooh, yes. Halftime. I put some triples in there. I didn't even notice that. I didn't do that on purpose. I just did that. Ooh, yes. And double that with the toms. I think that's gonna sound. Oh, yes. Okay. That sounds pretty damn rad. Now we have this little break. And I could add a drum fill here, but actually I think I'm gonna keep that space open for the vocals, because something that also shines very bright in the breakdown are the screams. Alright, now for this breakdown, if you can remember, I wanted to double whatever the guitar is doing here, and then in the second half I wanted to do like this marching kind of. So yeah, I think that's gonna be some pretty cool stuff. So let's go. So there's something I should point out. In the beginning I said that the snare is like the main factor for how fast your song feels. But cymbals and hi-hats and riots and stuff like that can play a huge role in that too. For example, here we have this like halftime feel, and once the hi-hats come in, it feels faster, even though the snare is still playing in that like halftime beat. So whatever you want to do, you can use hi-hats to make your song feel faster, or your snare, or use both. You gotta play around with whichever feels better for your song. So yeah, I hope that whatever I'm showing you here helps you in some way or another. But now, let me finish this. Alright, and now that brings us to the last part of the song, which is the outro. And, well, the outro is going to be very, very different from song to song, from person to person. So I can't really give you advice on that. You just do whatever feels right. But as I said in the last video, or the video before that on the guitar, if you have written all your drums all throughout the song, then you're probably going to be able to write something for your outro as well. So I can't really give you any tips on that. I could show you how to do synths. I could show you how to do pianos and orchestra. And well, sometimes you just add an instrument, work on that for an hour, and then you realize, well, it doesn't really fit, and then you have to scrap it and start something new. So I wouldn't want to put you through that, and I didn't want to put me through that editing, because wow, that would be a lot. Like I said, instead I'm just going to show you what I did, like a showcase, and hopefully I can inspire you to bring instruments into your song and figure out on your own how to write for them. So let's start with sound effects. I have a pack by Joey Sturgis Tones, I have Chaos 1 and 2, and I have Snare Bombs. And when you combine those, you can create soundscapes like these. Those kind of sound effects just allow you to make transitions sound noisier. Or emphasize certain instruments of your song, for example, the snare here. Just makes it sound a lot bigger. And you don't necessarily need to buy any sample packs from Joey Sturgis or whoever. You can just go on YouTube and search for risers, impacts, booms, and whooshes. And they all have different purposes, and I guess you will find out what they're for. With that said, let's move on to the next thing that I added, which would be the synthesizer right here. Just adds a little bit of a melody and makes this part more interesting. I also added this before the breakdown with a little bit of a automation on this cutoff right here. Wait, on this one. And yeah, I think that's the only 2 times I used the synthesizer. Now, the last thing before we get to the orchestra is this pad. The plugin I used is free, it's called Labs, it's by Spitfire. And I forgot to mention the synthesizer I made with Vital. I just made it myself. That's probably why it sounds so meh. But now let's get to the most exciting part, which is, well, the orchestra, of course. I don't know which part to show you, I guess I'll just show you this part. So I can go a little bit deeper into how to write orchestra, just a little bit. Orchestra is really complex, so if you really want to, like, this takes time, I tell ya. And the tutorial will also probably be like an hour or 2 long, I don't know. So I would really need to get some feedback on this. If there's like 1,000 people coming towards me being like, hey, we need the tutorial, then I'll be like, well, okay, fine. But yeah, I'm not gonna put myself through that tutorial if nobody asks for it, so yeah. Plus, the orchestra that I'm using is called East-West Symphonic Orchestra, so that one's a little on the expensive side. You could use Spitfire's Labs. As I said, that's a free plugin, and it has a few free orchestral instruments as well, but I don't think you'll be able to make it this high quality. Anyway, let's get into how to write. So first we have this melody, which is being played by the violins. Which is kind of the main melody of our main riff, and just add a few more spices in there, just make it interesting. Then we have the double bass, which is just playing the main riff. And here we do not play the melody. Then we have the contrabass, which is basically the same as the double bass, but we have some notes to accent the chords, I guess. How do you pick those notes? I honestly don't know. You just do whatever sounds good. I can't really explain it that well. Then we go to the cellos, which are doing the exact same thing. They are playing the accent notes and just emphasizing those. And then we have French horns and the trombones doing pretty much the same thing. We have down here the normal riff or the normal notes, and then we have the accent notes. And when you put all of those together, yeah, there we go. And when we listen to all the instruments in our orchestra, then it sounds kind of like this. On its own, that sounds pretty damn cool, but how does it sound in the mix? Now, here's where it gets really interesting, because you have a whole orchestra that you have to mix into your already very full sounding metal mix. So that's going to be very interesting once we get to mixing. Keep that in mind when adding instruments. You don't want to take away the spotlight from the other elements as well. Okay, that's about all the advice that I can give you right now, because this is very, very specific to each track. And I guess you're kind of on your own on this one. But I believe in you. You can do it if you even want to. I mean, maybe all you want to add is a piano in your chorus and that's it. That's fine. You don't have to add a whole orchestra to your track, especially if you're just doing thrash metal, for example. If you want to do symphonic metal, well, then you might need an orchestra. But on thrash metal, hell nah. On new metal, nah, we don't need that stuff. So yeah, it is very dependent on your genre and song and whatnot. Now, how do we write vocals? Well, first we need a topic, and I came up with 3 things. There are more, of course, but I came up with these 3. You could write about a scenario. For example, in my song Welcome My Friend to Hell, the scenario is the following: you end up in hell. Wow, very creative, right? For a deathcore song, wow. And it's basically just that. In the first few lines, we have characters saying, "This is the entrance, we are the fallen, make yourself at home. We are the sinners, rapists and murderer, where we belong. You have been sent here, you want one of us, what have you done, huh? Was it jealousy, was it pure rage, or was it despair?" So it's basically just a few characters saying, "Hey, welcome to hell, you're here too." And then we jump in the role of our character and we say, "I don't know, I can't remember. What did I do to deserve this mess? Is this the result of my actions? I'm just trying to understand. Is this the result of my actions?" And then we get like a little bit of a narrator talking us through. "Before you know it, you're punished for actions you have long suppressed. You might wonder why you fell. Thought you did well, but welcome, my friend, to hell." So it's a relatively simple concept or scenario. You just end up in hell, and yeah. For example, we have these few lines that also talk you through how it would probably feel like to be in hell. What is the purpose of this place to suffer in agony? Oh, can you feel your teeth dissolving? It stings over and over again. A headache so strong you vomit. The pressure running through your head. You want to die, but you can't because it's eternal. So, very basic concept, and yeah. So you could do that, a concept. Or 2 would be describing an emotion. For example, in my song Losif, I wrote about depression. Not the illness, just the feeling, because I don't think I have depression. I am depressed sometimes, but I don't think I have the illness. So yeah, I wrote a song about that specific feeling, and go spiraling down into the dark, the shadows pulling you so stuck down into the void you have created. Wait and you'll be fully faded. Slowly descending into madness, already going insane, where there is nothing to hold on to. What will stop the pain? To be fair, my songs are a little bit on the nose, a little too on the nose. I should probably work on that, make them a little bit more poetic, but this is just as an example, so yeah, I hope you understand what I mean. And the third thing is in a song I haven't fully written yet, which is you write a story. Now, the difference between a scenario and a story is, in a story, you usually have multiple scenarios going back to back, where in a scenario, like in Welcome My Friend to Hell, I just have this one scenario, you end up in hell, and then you have different perspectives talking you through that scenario. But yeah, the story could go like, waking up in a sea of flames, the fire surrounds him, there's no escape, burning away all hope that's left like the wood surrounding Zark, so dark, he ain't alone in this wildfire, their kids and families, a deep desire grabbing him tight by the throat, giving him a courage, he helps them out. So that's how we have like a line of events happening, and then you just walk the listener through that. And a tip that I can give you for writing lyrics or finding a topic is listen to some of your favorite songs and pay attention to the lyrics. Some of them might be weird, some of them might be very interesting and cool, and might help you get inspiration for your own song. But once we have a topic, we should decide, do we want to sing or scream? Because those two things will give us two different things to work with. In singing, it's obviously more about the melody, whereas in screaming, it's a lot more rhythmic and it's more about the vocal flow. And to write those things, you could take some kind of plugin, like a synthesizer, or you could just use your guitar and you just play a melody. For example, I played this. So that basically just gives me an idea of what kind of melody I should sing here, or could sing here. And you should also pay attention to vocal flow and the rhythmic when it comes to writing melodies. Although, of course, the melody itself is probably a little bit more important than that. However, that completely switches around when we talk about screaming, because in screaming we don't have a melody. So instead, we have to focus on the rhythmic. For example, in my song World of Mine, I came up with this rhythmic ba 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 ba. Very simple, but in the context of this riff, it works really freaking well. And the way you could come up with those kind of rhythms is either just drum along to your song, or do scat vocals. Scat vocals is basically just saying random syllables. Say random words and create rhythm with that, a flow if you want to. Because flow and rhythm is very important. It's kind of like rap, where it's not about the melody, but about the flow. And metal is just a very rhythmic genre, and you also want the vocals to be rhythmic. You want the vocals to make you headbang. Not just the riffs, not just the drums, but also the vocals can make you headbang. For example, in To the Hellfire by Lorna Shore, you have lost in sensation, roughly falling down into the ever black. Can you feel it? These pins and needles trapped. And that just wouldn't feel the same if it was lost in sensation, roughly falling down into the ever black. Can you feel it? These pins and needles. It just doesn't work like that. It just doesn't sound as cool. So flow and rhythm can make a huge deal in writing lyrics. Next topic, should your lyrics rhyme or not? And again, they don't have to rhyme. We're going back to the Hellfire. For example, in the verse, we have accept this ascent into the night, releasing your grasp to induce separation, plunged into the shadows, lost in sensation, roughly falling down into the ever black. Can you feel it? These pins and needles. None of that rhymed, really. But it still kind of works because the flow is kind of cool and I don't know, it just works. However, in the context of a chorus, I would probably recommend doing it because it makes it sound more memorable and it just glues it together kinda. And even into the Hellfire, we have that. We have Azrael guiding me beyond the veil, Arbitral free me from this mortal shell, enter into the darkest night, I will sink where I lie, through the sense of time, through the angel's eye, my final breath, swallowed by the womb of death. So having rhymes can really add impact and make it sound a little bit more memorable. Plus, it can be cool sometimes. For example, in You Belong Here by RaneMusic, I'm just gonna use this example because one, it has great flow, and two, the rhymes just work. Nope, I can't now, too late. This elevator's going down to my grave underground. Look around, not a sound can escape. Freaking out, I'm how many hours away? Ah, feels like I've been down here for days. So this free pizza, that you can wait. Not gonna lie, not proud of the pay. Hey, boss, how about a race? A mechanical clown with a powerful gaze. Locked in a coffin, bound like a slave. Shark cunning plates coming out of her face. Has she found any way to get out of her cage? Maybe. They're not so bad, baby. Just stop, relax. Sorry that I can't help you out. Yes, you can, we'll tell you how. So yeah. Rhythm is really freaking cool, and yeah, the rhymes just work. So playing around with rhyme schemes and stuff like that can really be cool. So should you rhyme or not, that's up to you. It's just that rhymes can add another layer to your song, which is kind of cool sometimes. But now that we have talked about writing lyrics, let's get to how to record them, shall we? So let's create a new track for our vocals. The first thing you'll need is probably a compressor. Now, I could talk an entire video about compressor, so I'm just going to keep this very simple. A compressor basically makes a track louder and makes sure that the loud parts are about as loud as the quiet parts, so that it's all at roughly the same volume. And now we just add a little bit of reverb. That's maybe a little bit too much, don't you think? Because when you record like this, it sounds kind of dry and it just throws you off a little bit when singing. So you probably want reverb to go on there, so singing can sound a little bit more noise. One problem with recording reverb though is da, 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 da. Now I have reverb on there, but if I want to get rid of that or try a new reverb, da, 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 the reverb will still be on. To make sure that that doesn't happen, make sure that you click on this thing up here and go on record external input only. This way it will not record your reverb, it will not record the compressor, it will only record your microphone. And this way you can always go back and change whatever you want to. I should probably have mentioned that when we were talking about guitar tones, because if you want to change those, you also want to make sure that your guitar tone sounds like this under all the effects. Because then you can always go back and change what the guitar sounds like. And now that we know how to record, let's record. In my case, I don't have any lyrics yet, but I can still give you a few tips on what you can do. One tiny little problem that I see happen a lot when you start singing is that you sing too low. You sing like an octave below what you should usually sing. Which sounds a little bit like you're bored, you're not really projecting your voice, it just sounds okay. So instead of pulled away from the stage, only slowly turning the page, you could sing this an octave higher. Pulled away from the stage, only slowly turning the page. Which just adds a lot more power to it. But if you have like a melody that is already very high, and at some point it just does naturally go kind of low, then another thing you could do is add rasp to it. For example, in my song Hate, I don't sing, "The bubble is popped, dreams come to a stop." I don't sing that clean. I sing like this. The bubble is popped, dreams come to a stop. Try your best to fit in, just to keep on living. And then you heard I added a second vocal layer that sung the same melody but a little bit higher to elevate that. So you could do those three things. Either sing one octave higher, add rasp, or add another layer. Or do all three. But of course you don't always have to use rasp, and you shouldn't always sing clean. So let's show you a little example of how you can incorporate both into a song. Here, throughout the verse, I mostly sing clean. Occasionally I throw a little bit of rasp in there, but full rasp is only in the chorus. Can you describe the face you saw? Could it be one you recognize? We'd never harm the hand that draws. Imagination cursed us all with life. Shamed and defaced, scathed and disgraced. So using rasp tastefully can really add to your song. By the way, I can't really explain how to do that or how to do screams once we get into those because, well, I'm not a vocal coach and I wouldn't really know how to explain it anyway, so yeah, sorry. But talking about techniques and screaming, let's go to that. In some of the deathcore songs I listen to on Spotify, I find that some of the vocals are very monotone and boring because they just use the same technique throughout the entire song. Now this is a bad example because here I actually think it fits really freaking well, but it does get my point across kind of. Because here we start with low screams, then we go into more low screams, more low screams, even the chorus, low screams, build up, low vocals. Okay, now guess what the breakdown has? Low screams, of course. Now, as I said, I think in this song it actually fits really well. Sometimes simpler is better, but especially if you have like really complicated deathcore songs that are like really exciting and you have just low screams throughout the entire thing, it gets monotone and boring really freaking fast. So you have that side of the spectrum. And then on the other side of the spectrum, you have bands like Lorna Shore, where in this verse alone, we already have so many different kinds of screams. And in this part that's coming up right now, we actually have multiple screams layered on top of each other, which sounds really freaking cool. And then we go back to low scream. So that just makes the song a lot more exciting and interesting to listen to, and it doesn't get boring or monotone. However, you don't always have to do that. Like I said, in the Shadow of Intent example I just showed you, I thought that it just fit really well to the song, so it just depends on whatever works with your song, I guess. I would, however, like to go back to this example by Lorna Shore, because I would like to have you pay attention to his vocal flow, to his lyrics, to the rhythm of how he articulates and spits out the words, because I think that his rhythm and lyric flow is really freaking on point. It just works. So those are all the tips that I can give you right now. I should probably get to recording, and then we can go into how to layer and how to start with mixing your vocals. Alright, as you can see, I am done recording. I recorded quite a few takes. And the tips that I gave you earlier were all fairly theoretical. But how about I give you some tips that you can actually use right now? Something practical, so that you can just go in and finally do something. So first off, record multiple times, because sometimes you just can't get everything right in one take, and that is okay. For example, I really like how I did this part. But I do not like this little pause right here. However, in this part, I did not have that pause in there. But I messed up a few words around here. So what you could do now is just splice those up, get rid of this, and move this here. And now we have a perfect part. As easy as that. And especially when you're doing clean singing, this can come in handy really well, because you will probably mess up notes here and there a little bit. So it's nice to have a few takes to go through and listen to, okay, this part sounds really good here. This part is a little bit weird, but on this take, this part sounds actually pretty good. And then you can just splice the takes together so that in the end you have a really nice end result. So the tip that I can give here is having a lot of takes can be a good thing, but also a bad thing, because well, the good thing is you're probably going to have a good end product, but the bad thing is, well, as you can see, you will have a lot of takes that you will have to go through and listen to. So it's going to be a lot of work. Plus, you probably can't sing for 2 hours on end, so at some point your voice is going to get tired and you won't be able to continue recording. I recorded 5 takes here, but let's say I recorded 10 takes instead, I probably wouldn't be able to do the breakdown afterwards. My voice would have been too tired probably. So you gotta manage it. How many takes do you want to record? And now that you have all your takes, you just listen to them one by one and decide, okay.
Will the clouds wander up and leave to side a clear blue sky?
Does this sound good? I guess. How about this one?
Will the clouds wander up and leave to side a clear blue sky?
This one sounds kind of cool, but the sky sounds kind of weird, so I would have to cut that off if I wanted to use this take.
Will the clouds wander up and leave to side a clear blue sky?
The sky is a little bit low, so I would probably not use this one, and then you just go further and further and listen to every line individually, and then you just use which take sounds the best for the first line, and then you go to the second line, go through all the takes, and then one that sounds the best, use that. And then you just have a bunch of takes being spliced after another. So I'll do that. That might take a while, and I guess I'll see you when I'm done with that. There's actually one practical tip that I can give you right here, which is just rename one of the tracks and color code it so it's easy to see, and then you can move all the good sounding parts down there so it doesn't get too complicated and messy.
Leave to side a clear blue sky. Oh, we'll then cover another layer. Oh, we'll then cover another layer to my eye.
Alrighty, once you've figured out what takes you want to splice together, you can go to the mixer check where all your takes come together, which is in my case 20. And this time you can actually set the record setting to external and mixer input, because this time it's going to record everything that comes from the playlist into the mixer input. However, if you're going to do this, make sure that your mic is no longer in the input, otherwise it's going to pick up the random background noise and whatever you're doing while this is recording. So make sure that your track is ready to record, and let's go.
Will I find the next step when the staircase is in my mind? Or will I wander in spaces that will keep me blind in times?
And then when it's done recording, you will just have one take instead of a bunch of different takes that just block your screen. So you can now get rid of all that and even delete all the takes that you don't need down here. And then everything is a little bit more cleaned up. Now, with metal, this one is a little bit controversial. I mean, I'm not incredibly good at singing, so I'm going to be tuning my vocals. There's a few ways that you could do it. Obviously, you could use autotune, but that one is expensive as heck. A free variant to autotune would be auto pitch, which sounds okay, but except being able to set the scale, you won't be able to do much other stuff than that. So I don't use that anymore. Although I did use that throughout like most of my albums all the way until Loseth, and even in Loseth I think I used it a couple times. Only in my more recent stuff I stopped using it. What I do now is I just double click and go to edit in pitch corrector. And this might not work for all of you. It probably will, but it will say trial here. So you might have to buy this plugin. I don't think it's insanely expensive. I can't remember how much I paid, but honestly, it's definitely worth it. It's kind of like Melodyne if you've ever seen that. So what you could do with this program is just set the variation to like something very minute and center all the notes. Now it would probably sound like autotune, or you could reset this and go in by hand. So you could listen to the notes.
Will the clouds wander off and leave to side a clear blue sky?
And correct the notes that seem a little off. And make sure that if this one, for example, sounds way too wavy and I don't hit the note really that well, then I can turn the variation down and I should stay like perfectly on the note.
Will the clouds wander?
Which is when it starts sounding like autotune. And then you can just tune your take.
Will the clouds wander off and leave to side a clear blue sky?
However, if you don't want to do it because, well, it's metal, it's not supposed to be like pop music on the grid, 100% perfect, well then go ahead. I won't complain. And the listeners probably won't either. It's just me being like hyper critical of my singing and being like, this needs to be tuned. And when we're done with correcting everything, we just click on this icon right here. And then a green audio clip should appear. It's probably going to appear at the very left of your song unless you have earlier selected a different part of your song. Then it's going to put the clip wherever your selection starts. And then you can technically just delete this old file. And now you're just left with this corrected file.
Hit the brakes, rewind, stumbling further too far. Is my destination beyond the stars? Will this journey come to an end? Or it's this a play and we just pretend when reality blends?
And honestly, it doesn't even sound that bad. It doesn't sound like I used a lot of autotune. It just sounds kind of normal. It doesn't even sound like I tuned it, which is why this plugin is so goddamn nice. Now, especially for choruses like these,
Stumbling further too far.
that sounds kind of meh. So I could do two things. I'm probably gonna try putting on some distortion on it, like stumbling further too far, because that always sounds a little bit more aggressive. And the second thing I'm going to try is singing two layers. So the first one I'll put on the left and the other one to the right, and they will just be the same as this, like exactly the same. But because I will put them left and right, they will sound a little bit bigger, it will sound huge. Maybe I will sing some harmonies as well, so it will just sound like a bunch of people singing this chorus. So now, when you have all your main vocals recorded and got everything put together, then you can start worrying about doubles and layers and stuff like that. In my case, I just record the end of every sentence because it just kind of sounds cool. So yeah, that's what you could do.
The worries leaking through the pages as vicious as ink. When the pressure starts rising, it really makes you think. All the warnings, all the sirens, they blink inside your head. Is this the moment you break, or can you go a bit further?
It just makes it sound a little bit thicker, especially this last scream. Something that people argue about is about should you double track vocals or not. So like double tracking is basically singing the same part the exact same way twice and then just layering those two on top of each other. Kind of similar to what you do with guitar. except you don't pan these left and right. You usually keep them somewhere in the middle. And I usually don't do that because I like the raw sound of one recording.
Is this the moment you...
But if I want to have a scream like specifically stand out, then I usually record a double.
Can you go a bit further?
Because it just makes it sound a little bit more full. Now when it comes to a chorus, in my case, this just sounded a little bit too weak.
We want something further to far. Is my...
So I just recorded the same thing and put those left and right.
Want something further to far. Is my destination beyond the stars.
Which again makes it sound a little bit bigger. And then I added a harmony.
Want something further to far. Is my destination beyond the stars. Will this journey come to an end? Or is this a play and we just pretend?
Now, how do you come up with harmonies? You just play around, really. In my case, I actually did something really, really simple, which is just copying the chord progression.
Something further to far. Is my destination beyond the stars.
And when you put the layers together,
Something further to far. Is my destination beyond the stars. Will this journey come to an end? Or is this a play and we just pretend?
so I get this like almost like chorish kind of sound. And here it just sounds a lot fuller and better. When it comes to scream layers, that depends on the context. Usually I don't double this often, but in this case it just sounded really freaking cool, so I did it. So I think that sounds really freaking thick. It sounds way too loud right now, and yeah, the mixing is not done, but that's what we have next episode for. So I would say that we just go from left to right, shall we? So let's start with our clean guitar. Oh god. Okay, already starting with something that I usually don't work with, so this is going to be interesting. I know that the Emissary has a clean channel. Hell yeah. I'm imagining that that doesn't sound any good because we don't have an impulse response yet. Oh, never mind. Okay, this clean thingy works pretty well without an impulse response. Okay. That already sounds pretty damn good. Okay. Again, next we need an equalizer. We want to make sure that there's no frequencies we don't need. Actually, because this is the intro, I don't even really need that. I don't need to add a cutoff for the low frequencies because we don't really have that much going on in the bass area anyway. But just to clean it up a little bit, I'm going to add it anyway. Okay, and how about a cool effect? I don't know. For some reason, I want to do something creative with this intro. Like, for example, in the song You Only Live Once, you have this like chorusy, phasey effect in the intro. And something like that, I could do that. It just makes it stand out a little bit. That sounds pretty cool. Just put a chorus, standard settings. Okay. Oh yes, please. I like that kind of detuned sound. That sounds pretty damn cool. Okay, reverb. I have a few reverb plugins. Let's just use the standard reverb for now because I know that you guys will also have that. We are talking about FlStudio after all. Wow, okay, only now I realize how quiet this guitar is. I should have been adjusting my headphones. Alright, next up is our rhythm guitar. And one thing that like immediately comes to my mind is how dark my guitar tone sounds. So let's brighten up that guitar tone, huh? Which of these high frequencies can I add or boost without it sounding like crap? Okay, let's see what this sounds like now. Alright, that sounds pretty good to me. We did talk about guitar tones in part 3 though, so I was not going to go any deeper than that. Now, the lead guitar tone. Here we actually learned something new now. Well, not particularly new, but this guitar tone doesn't need any low end. So I can definitely pull that down and pull this all the way over here. Actually, let me pull this up. Well, it's true, I don't need any low frequencies, like in bass area or the sub bass area. I do want the tone to feel somewhat warm, so like pulling up the low mids wouldn't hurt. Next up is we have a low cut actually in this plugin by FlStudio. I'm going to use that because I don't want the low frequencies to be in the reverb, because again, it would just mud up the mix. However, I find that there are some really nasty frequencies in here. Around here, there's like 2000 to like 5 point something. Here we go into a little bit more advanced stuff, which is a multi-band equalizer. We don't need the low, we don't need the high, I just need the mid-frequency band. At around 5K and like 3K, I believe. And now I can just, okay, this is fine. We just need to cut it off right there. So when a sound is really loud, it goes to the right. And up and down is also like a measurement of volume. Like what we see here is the input gain, but this line kind of like dictates the output gain. Alright, that doesn't sound too bad. Let's get on with the bass. Oh yeah, the bass. Honestly, I really like how the bass sounds. Maybe I could add a little bit more drive. But yeah, honestly, I'm very surprised of how good this bass sounds. Especially when you combine it with the guitars. Yeah, holy damn. The bass sounds awesome. I don't think I need to change anything here. We'll maybe get to it once we get to the drums, maybe. Okay, let's take a look at our synth. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Okay, I already did that. I turned down the low frequencies. Okay. I was doing that just to clean up the bass and the low frequencies. Okay, cool. I don't think I really need to do anything here. It might sound a little bit muffled, but especially later in the build-up, it gets higher. So I don't really need to do anything there. Then we have the ambience. And here I can engage the low cut. Not too much. We don't want to take away from the fullness of the sound, but I also don't want to mud up the mix. So I'm going to put this at around 80 Hertz, which should be fine. Now we get to the drums, and here things get a little bit interesting for at least some of you. Some plugins allow you to put certain instruments on a different mixer track. Apparently I already did that here. The kick is on output 2, the snare is on output 3 and stuff like that. But in order for that to work, we need to click on this little wheel and go to the processing settings and make sure that these are all set up. And now our drums should have their own mixer track. So these are our drums. This is my kick drum. Here we have the snare, and these are my toms. And then I'm going to create an extra channel for the reverb for the snare, but we'll get to that. The overheads, I don't really need to do a lot here. I'm just gonna cut off the low frequencies again because I don't want the kick drum to be overly annoying. I'm actually going to pull up the high frequencies just to make them pulp more. Okay, now I just need to make sure that I'm not cutting off too much because I still want the character of the cymbals to be in there. Okay, so we have the before and after. This is before. And this is after. Sounds very, very bright. And like there's no bass. Which is good, because now we will get it back on the kick drum. And oh boy, will we get it back. Okay, so first off, equalizer. The mid frequencies always sound like cardboard. They sound boxy. So I'm gonna just obliterate those. Okay, now we can pull one of these frequency bands up, and now we can listen to what frequency sounds the coolest. Because especially in metal, we want a clicky kick. So I'm going to pull up the high frequencies here. I'm actually going to do something interesting here. I'm going to do a cutoff with a little bit of resonance so that we boost our main frequency of the bass drum, but take away everything that comes after. So I actually know that this bass drum sounds pretty good around 42 Hertz. So that's where I'm going to put it, and I'm going to take down the other low frequencies. Alright, now it's time for the good old compressor that will help make it sound huge. Okay, that seems to be pretty good. Okay, now we can make sure that the mids are going away again. Wow, this is starting to sound really freaking powerful. Now here's a plugin that you probably don't have because it costs money. JST Clip is a clipping plugin that can make it sound huge. Hell yeah. Okay, so there's a lot of low end, and this might actually muddy up the mix again. So I'm going to use Maximus again, the multi-band compressor. I'm going to take this off. I want this to take care of the low frequency, so let's look at the bands. Everything from 20 to 200, that seems about right. Okay, so this is all good. But once we get further down here, I want this to get quiet real fast. Okay, so listen to the tail. You get the initial bass, but then you get like the very long bass tail. Can you hear how long that you can still hear that bass? It's a little bit annoying and would muddy up the mix like hell. So with this little thingy down there, we got this to sound like this. That is pretty darn good. So, something that you could do if you wanted to, Camel Crusher, the British clean, just punishes the heck out of that kick drum. I'm gonna have to turn that down in post, that was freaking loud. I probably won't use Camel Crusher on here because I already have JST Clip and so much compression on there. But if you ever need your kick to be punchy as full, just know that Camel Crusher can do that. Okay, now this is too quiet. Let's turn this up again. Okay, but now that we have our punchy as hell kick, let's work on the snare a little bit. Because that just sounds meh. So let's add compressor again. Okay, that compressor works. And let's use the equalizer again to make sure that the kick drum doesn't bleed. Okay, here we can very obviously see where the snare is coming from. Okay, I'm gonna brighten up that spot, so just punches a little bit more. And then let's add some more JST Clip, because that just works and sounds so goddamn good. I'm gonna put the snare a little bit to the left actually, just to make room in the mix. Yeah, I think that sounds really cool actually. Okay, and now I'm gonna put this on another track right here on the insert 11. And I'm going to use the JST Skybox. And I'm gonna put the mix all the way to 100 here. Okay. Okay, cool. And now that should sound a lot huger. A lot bigger. Hell yeah. Okay, cool. Let's move on to the toms. Those also sound a little bit boxy. And if we like take away the mids again, that will make it sound dark. What I usually use here, I don't know. I'm just gonna go with the flow and pick the Camel Crusher, because that just always works with drums. Okay, I'm actually going to just copy what I did with the kick drum. I'm going to use the multiband compressor and turn off the low frequencies, like this. Okay, nice. And maybe I'm going to put that on the same reverb as the snare. And I think that works. And I'm going to put, again, GST clip on it because it makes it sound better. Hell yeah, that sounds nice. Now, if I wanted to, I could make sure that this doesn't go to the master, and this, and this, and this. And instead I would all send them to one group. And what that would do is it would allow me to further compress the drum as a group. So if, for example, I took the Camel Crusher again, which I would not do because I've already compressed this to death, then it would sound like way bigger. Actually, with those settings, that kind of works, so maybe I might. Alright, now, we can actually do the same with my symphonic orchestra thingy. Put those on other channels, and now we can have them be processed on different mixing tracks. Oh wow, I didn't realize how many instruments I have here. Oh, sheesh, okay, cool. The first thing we can do on pretty much all of them is just cut off the low frequencies. Now, technically you don't have to do it, but if you want your mix to be really tight and clean, I would probably do it. And even on the bassier instruments like the contrabass and stuff like that, I'm going to put a cutoff on there because I want my bass and the kick drum to really punch in and be the source of punch in my mix. And that will actually make sure that my limiter at the end doesn't totally squish the sound of the song, and it will just make more room for everything else. Okay, that sounds pretty cool. Let's hear it in the mix. Before we move on to the vocals, let's show you what I meant with the kick drum and the bass. So I'm going to be putting a sidechain on the bass. Ooh, you're going to need a plugin for that. Actually, this plugin is going to be free, so don't worry about that. It's called TDR Nova. And what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that this, whatever this is turned into kick drum. And then we set up the external sidechain. That means that this is only going to pick up the kick, even though we're currently on the bass layer. So what we're going to do, we turn those off. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick the frequency which our bass drum is located at. Like I said earlier, in my case, that's 42 Hertz. I'm actually going to go down to 40. And we're going to set the Q to really high. Activate the threshold. I actually don't think I need to make this really that high because the kick drum is already very loud. Put the ratio to something around 4. The attack should be really fast. And release should be relatively fast because we do want the bass to come in quick again. So as you can see, every time the bass drum plays, that frequency is going to go down in the bass. It doesn't really affect it. It only really affects this certain frequency that we just selected, which is going to make room for our bass drum. Alright, but now that our instrumental seems to be somewhat mixed, we can move on to the vocals. Ooh.
Will the clouds wander?
Well, that's a little bit quiet. Let's put on a compressor. And I could use the standard Fruity compressor, but I'm actually going to use one of the compressors that I usually use, which is Gain Reduction by Joey Sturgis again. He makes a lot of good metal plugins.
Will the clouds wander off and leave to side a clear blue sky?
And wow, those sounds are penetrating my ears right now. So I'm going to use Maximus, the multiband compressor again. We're actually going to use the low frequencies as well. We don't need the mid compressor. Okay. Yeah, that looks about right.
Will the clouds wander off?
Wow, you can you do? Yeah, you can. My God, that goes up high.
Will I find the next step when the staircase is in my mind? Or will I wander in spaces that will keep me blind in time?
Okay, cool. Let's do the same with the low, because we don't want plosives to ruin the sound.
Will the clouds wander off and leave to sight a clear blue sky? Or will they uncover another layer to my eye? Will I find the next step when the staircase is in my mind? Or will I wander in spaces that will keep me blind?
That gain reduction compressor is doing wonders, holy moly. Now we're gonna add some delay. I'm gonna turn that down though, because delay is really strong in this one. And here we can do a few settings. So this is what it usually sounds like. But that sounds boring. So we're gonna make this stereo by just putting the offset a little bit to the right or the left. It doesn't really matter. So that just makes it a lot more spacey. Okay, this is way too long. Let's turn this down. Yeah, let's add a cutoff. Okay, cool. Now, here we have...
Will the clouds wander off and leave to sight a clear blue sky?
So here we can always hear the end of the sentence, which can be a cool effect. What you could also do is turn it even further down and have it sound like a stadium.
Will the clouds wander off and leave to sight a clear blue sky?
Well, not really a stadium, but you will have this like equi effect. And if we turn this even further down, then we get this like very roomy sounding effect.
Will the clouds wander off and leave to sight a clear blue sky? Or will they uncover another layer to...
And if we turn this even further down, then we're going to get like a really small room.
Will the clouds wander off and leave to sight a clear blue sky? Or will they uncover another layer to my eye?
So we just got to find the setting that works for you. I'm probably going to keep it down here, and maybe I will later add another EQ delay that's like a longer. But in order to have it sound like huge and big, we are obviously going to use a reverb, of course. So I'm going to use this free reverb, which is called FreeVab 2. And let's listen to it.
Will the clouds wander off and leave to sight a clear blue sky? Or will they uncover another layer to my eye? Will I find the next step when...
Okay, that sounds like a lot of reverb, but let's hear it in the mix.
Will the clouds wander off and leave to sight a clear blue sky? Or will they uncover another layer to my eye? Will I find the next step when the staircase...
It's probably still a lot of reverb, so let's turn the wet down on the delay a little bit. And the same on the reverb. Let's do the doubled vocals. Honestly, I don't really have to show you how to do the doubled vocals because I just showed you how to do vocals. And as you can hear, it sounds pretty damn rad. So you basically do the same and then you just match. Okay, how loud do I want the doubles to be? How loud do I want the harmony to be? And then when you find a good setting, you just keep it there and you're good to go. I think I'm pretty much done with this. The instrumental sounds punchy as hell. The vocals already sound kind of cool. I'm excited to hear what that sounds like when the doubles and the harmonies finished. And yeah, I didn't really go really detailed into all this stuff. I'm sorry for that. I'm just not really that ahead of mixing. But considering that most of you are probably beginners just trying to write their first songs, I hope that this can like give like a little insight.
What is up, my dudes? My name is Rane and welcome back to Making Metal in FlStudio. Although we're not in FlStudio anymore, today we're talking about music videos, so let's go! So let's get to the first point, which is analyzing your lyrics. You will have to analyze your lyrics so that you can plan ahead what you want to film. For example, if you have like a really epic chorus that's like really big and epic, then you might want to shoot on a hill and have like a really cool background of the city or the nature or something like that. In our case, our lyrics are somewhat dark, so I chose to shoot in the woods because this might look really green on camera right now, but after the color grading, this will look really dark and kind of cinematic and epic in a dark way. And if you want to go really dark and film something like horror or something like that, then you could shoot in a place like this. Hell yeah. Which brings us to point 2, which is location scouting. You don't just want to go to one location and just record. Maybe if you just go around and look for different locations, you will find one that looks way better and way cooler than the one that you had planned. For example, Earlier we planned to go a little bit further ahead on like some kind of sewer or like waterway, I don't know how to describe it, but it kind of looked meh, so we just didn't go there. And once you found a cool location, you will need some gear. Now when it comes to the gear you need, well, one is very obvious, and that's the camera. And when you're gonna have a camera, well, it's also going to be very useful to have a tripod. You might not need a tripod if you have someone like Moon of Blood helping me with the camera, doing hand help and holding the gimbal. But if you don't have a gimbal or someone that can hold the camera for you, then you'll definitely need a tripod. Another thing you'll need is probably light. Unless you're shooting outside, like we are right now, it's probably good to have some lights. You can have studio lights or just use your phone as a flashlight, or just use whatever, just make sure that you're somewhat well lit. And what you obviously can't leave behind are your instruments. Once you have everything that you need, you just need to figure out what angles look the best. Do you just want straight from the front? Do you want like from further down the side, or like from above the headstock? Or when you're singing, do you want the camera to be off angle, or do you want it to be like straight on your face? There's many different things that you can do that evoke different emotions and can look better or worse. So you just want to figure out what works best for you, and yeah, that'll make sure that you'll have a nice video. Now, additionally to playing your guitar, you can record what's called B-roll, which is basically, besides just you playing the music, you can have like a little story, a little movie playing alongside the music. And then you just sprinkle in some of those shots here and there to just make the music video a little bit more interesting and have the focus been taken away from just you playing the instruments, which would on their own probably be a little bit boring. So having that little story go on the side will spice it up a little bit. And once you have everything recorded, you can go to the studio and we can start editing.
Now, because I don't know what programs you're going to use, I will only show you what to do, but not how to do those things, because it's going to be very different with every program. But the first thing you'll want to do is sync up your shots. I would do this one shot at a time. First, drag in your song, then drag in your footage of you singing or playing guitar, and then you just find the part in the video where you start singing or playing your instruments and align that with the music. Next step would be color grading. I won't go too deep into this, since this topic is absolutely humongous, but just make sure your shadows aren't entirely black and your highlights aren't super blown out. With the good old S-curve, you can add some contrast, and then you can play around with the colors to get your final result. Before you start editing the clips where you play your instruments, I would lay out the B-roll first, so you can make sure that everything that needs to be seen gets enough screen time. And once you have the B-roll laid out throughout the video, you can start splicing together everything else. My tip here is, make sure that edits happen in sync to the music. This makes cuts and edits feel more natural. At the end, you can add the good old black bars to make it look a bit more cinematic and export it.
Now that's all I have to say about music videos for now. How to upload them and where to upload them. How to make nice thumbnails, write descriptions and tags and all that. That's going to be part of the next episode, so I'm hoping to see you there.
Well, there are a few distributors that you can use, for example CD Baby, or what I have been using for the last few years would be DistroKid. You just upload your music there and they distribute it to Spotify, TikTok, YouTube Music, Apple Music, Deezer, etc. for only, I think, like $20 a year. It's like $2 a month, so that's a really good deal. And the thing with DistroKid, they say they give you 100% of the earnings. And considering that I have $193, even though my music doesn't really get that many streams, I tend to believe them, so that is pretty good as well. Now, I'm not going to show you what to put in those boxes. You can just look up a tutorial for whatever distributor you use. But there are a few things that you should consider, and that is the release date. You should probably put this like 2 or 3 weeks ahead. This way you can send your song to moderators and pitch it for a playlist. Because if your song gets playlisted, my god, the streams will just flood in like I have no idea. Sadly, this hasn't happened to me yet, but I just wanted to put it out there. It's a thing that could happen. If you want to know how to pitch your song, there are a lot of tutorials out there that can help you with that. And the second thing you should look out for is the preview clip. Because on TikTok, for example, people can't use your entire song. They can only use like a little snippet. and you should be able to decide what snippet they're listening to. For example, you probably don't want them to listen to the intro, you probably want them to listen to the chorus or the breakdown, because the chorus is very catchy or the breakdown is very brutal and interesting. I don't know, but you should probably decide what streaming services are going to present the listeners. Now, after you've uploaded your song to your distribution service, you should probably upload it on YouTube as well, because, well, it's YouTube. We'll get into it later. Another platform I'd upload to is Newgrounds. And Newgrounds is interesting because you probably won't get a lot of views, even though your song might be rated very high. But if a moderator stumbles upon your song and likes it, he might put it on the front page. And that's when you're going to start seeing the big numbers. Now, for that to happen, there are two variables, I think. One is, it has to be objectively good. The mix should sound professional to some degree. But the other variable, and I'm not going to lie here, the moderators have to like it. It's very subjective. For example, the song that I just showed you is very easy to listen to. It's kind of mainstream. It's very catchy. It has a singable chorus. But if you're going to upload something very brutal, like deathcore, the song might be really cool and a banger and it might be mixed very well, but Newgrounds is a very EDM heavy website and the moderators are probably not exposed to this kind of music, so it's very unlikely that a niche genre like this is going to get front paged. So just so you know, you're probably not going to get front page with this kind of music. I do, however, still think that Newgrounds is very valuable, so upload there anyway. Now, next website is SoundCloud, and I haven't really been that lucky with SoundCloud, which is probably because on this website people upload their beats and rappers are on here, and again, it's a very EDM heavy website. And whenever I have people listen to my music, like Claudia Christmas for example, it's usually just some fake account to get you to log into their promotion website and pay money. So yeah, SoundCloud doesn't really work for me. It might work for you, so just try it out and maybe you'll be lucky. Next website would be Bandcamp, and I think Bandcamp is really cool because on Bandcamp people can listen to your music on a pretty decent quality, and if they like it they can pay either $7 for the album or whatever you set the price to. They can buy your whole discography or they can just buy the single track. And when they do buy one of those things, they're going to get the uncompressed WAV flag or whatever you're going to upload there. So I think it's a very cool website and it's an easy way to support you, the creator. Now, what all these websites have in common is you need to write some kind of description and put tags in. So let's go on YouTube and see what we can do. First, just put something about your song, how it came to be, what the song is about, or just write something about the song. For example, in Beyond the Stars, I just wrote, "This song was made in the tutorial series How to Make Metal in FlStudio. If you'd like to see the progress of me making this, click here." And then it's just a link to the playlist. Speaking of links, people hate having to look for things. So make sure that you have all the links in the description that lead to your streaming services, so people don't have to manually look for your name and the song. And yeah, at the end you can add lyrics or something else if you want to. And when it comes to tags, it's very straightforward. Just enter your main genres and subgenres. For example, rock and metal. In the case of Beyond the Stars, also symphonic metal and maybe a little bit of progressive metal, metalcore. And then you can just add some standard tags like screaming, singing, musician, and then you should be good to go. In the case of YouTube, you can also choose a thumbnail. And here I do something similar to what Lorna Shore does, which is I just pick a random frame from the video. Here for Chance, and here for Beyond the Stars, which seems to be going pretty good. Or you can do something like cattle decapitation and do like real proper thumbnails. But now that you've uploaded your music to all those platforms, how do you promote it? The first platform I'd do it on would be Twitter, even though Twitter doesn't really do much, but upload it there anyway because you can. And just put in a few hashtags and maybe add someone if they're somehow related to your song. Same on Instagram, you just post a picture of the music video or of the cover art and then you just add some hashtags, maybe add someone, and then in your bio you just add the link to your YouTube, Spotify or whatever. Next up would be Facebook, and Facebook is seriously underrated when it comes to promotion. First, just share the music video on your page, and when people listen to it they might share it on their side as well. But more importantly, search for groups for certain subgenres, for musicians or fandom if your song is about them. and then post your song on those groups, because you can get a lot of views through that way. It's kind of similar to Reddit, where you look for subreddits that might be relevant to your song. For example, if you make a symphonic metal song, you might want to go on the symphonic metal subreddit and post your song there. You can also post it on like normal subreddits like musicians, metal covers. Promote your stuff, promote your music, headbang to this. It's a very fast and easy way to get people to listen to your stuff. And I see you can share your video on Discord groups or WhatsApp groups and put it in your status. And when all that is done, you can start making short videos like YouTube Shorts, Reels or TikToks, because those will get even more people to listen to your songs. And then just watch your song grow. In the case of my video Chance, about 12% of the views came from external sites. The video currently has 1,000 views, so that's almost 120 people. And like I said, Facebook is seriously underrated. Almost 50% of those 12% came from Facebook. So that's almost 50 people that watched the music video just from Facebook. So I would seriously recommend to consider uploading on Facebook as well. Now, if you want to go the extra mile, you can message people that have a Spotify playlist and ask them, hey, could you listen to my song and put it on your playlist? You can ask people that write blogs or news articles to write about you. Or if you're really desperate, you can pay someone on Fiverr to write about you. Or look for a manager or something like that. And then yeah, once you've done all of that, you just sit back and relax. But yeah, one tip I can give you is do not underestimate promotion. There are up to 100,000 songs uploaded every day. And there are a lot of good ones out there. So it's no longer about just making a good song, it's also about promoting it. In fact, these days it's pretty even. It's as important to promote your song as just making the song itself. So please do not give up and just keep pushing it, and maybe you will get to 1,000 views. Who knows? But anyway, this journey ends for me right here, at least for this current song, Beyond the Stars. Maybe I might remaster this tutorial series at some point with a new song, who knows? But for now, I thank you very much for watching. I hope this tutorial series could help you one way or another. And yeah, I guess I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye!